Welcome back to Questing Beast, I'm Ben. Today we're taking a look at The Slave Minds of Vindicus the Terrible by Mike Evans. This is a level 0 adventure for Barbarians of the Ruined Earth, which is a post-apocalyptic science fantasy game written by Mike Evans that's based off of the Black Hack. Now this thing is essentially a funnel adventure. And if you're not familiar with what those are, they were invented basically by Dungeon Crawl Classics. It's a way of introducing new characters to the game. Instead of making a standard level 1 character, you make 4 level 0 characters. So these are people with virtually no adventuring abilities whatsoever. And they all go through a meat grinder of sorts, a dangerous situation. So it often has lots of characters, right? 4 per person, you could have 16 PCs easily. And by going through this adventure, some of them die, some of them survive, but it becomes the initiating adventure that ties all of them together. They have a reason for adventuring now because they've all gone through this traumatic experience and survived it. And now they're adventurers once you get out on the other side. In this one, you play 4 child slaves that are in the minds of an evil sorcerer, wizard, Skeletor-like creature in a world similar to Thundar the Barbarian or He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. And you're going to try and escape his minds as they are under assault from another faction, possibly He-Man or something like that. One of the reasons I was so happy that Mike Evans sent me a copy of this adventure is I actually helped to playtest it. I playtested it with Mike, who was DMing at the Gen Con 3 years ago, the last Gen Con before everything got shut down by COVID. And we played through this whole adventure and I had a really fun time. Before we get started though, quick shout out to today's sponsor. This episode is sponsored by Into the AM and their series of fantasy and sci-fi themed t-shirts. One of their new ones is one I'm wearing right now. I like it a lot because it kind of reminds me of what the inside of your standard Dungeon Master's head probably looks like. If you like it, you can go over to their web store and check it out for yourself. If you use the link in the description below, you can get 10% off of the entire web store. Into the AM has been a big sponsor of Questing Beast for quite a long time, and I really like their t-shirts. I wear them all the time, almost every day. They're really comfortable and they're really affordable too. Thanks again to Into the AM for sponsoring. Now let's get back to the show. All right, let's take a look at what we get on the back of the book. So this is inspired by Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom and Saturday morning cartoons. You control 4 children each. You're trying to gain your freedom as this citadel that you were imprisoned in is under attack. And you're going to be confronting robots, hideous monsters, and a vile overseer. You can also use some of the new monsters in here for Barbarians of the Ruined Earth, which I've reviewed in the past if you just want some new monsters. Nice note there from Mike. Lots of different illustrators here. Basically, you're not going to be creating standard characters. Instead of rolling up your ability scores, this is based on the Black Hack, so everything would be roll under normally. You're just children, so you have to rely on luck for almost everything. Basically, you have a 50-50 chance of doing anything dangerous. If you're trying to capture things that are or attack things that are much bigger than you, you're going to have disadvantage. So you have to probably succeed on 2 50-50 rolls. But remember that you have 4 characters that you're controlling. So your odds actually aren't that bad if you have all of your characters jump on an enemy and try and drag them down. Each character only has 4 hit points. They can go down in just 1 hit if they get a bad hit. You have different races that you can be: humans, beastmans, Vec, possibly a sorcerer. All of these are fleshed out in the core book for this system. Weapon damage, everyone does 1d4 damage with a weapon or just 1 damage with a fist. The design of the adventure is quite well done. We have a map here. I like this map a lot in terms of the illustrations and the clarity with which you can see what's going on. I do have a couple quibbles with it though. First of all, it would be nice to have a compass on it just because there's a lot of room descriptions that say, there's an entrance going north or there's this thing on the west side. And it's not totally clear what direction those are in because it's done in an isometric view. I'm pretty sure that way is north and this way in this direction is south. So that'd be like west and east. I would probably draw that in here just to make things a little bit easier. Also, there is some locations on here that are not noted. For example, when you read the adventure, we'll come across things like we have room 13 right here, and it'll mention things like section 13A or 13B, and those are not noted on here. And you have to sort of figure out where they are. The illustrations are good enough that that's not too big of a deal, but it is an oversight that I found a little bit annoying. The only other thing I'd improve is that there is a lot of open space around this thing. It's a nice big map. So I think putting in the actual room names and maybe even short descriptions of what's going on there would be really helpful in terms of scanning. However, it's really nice that there are little illustrations of what's going on in each room, which does help a lot with figuring out what's probably going on there. The basic structure is pretty simple. You start off in a jail cell. That would be this one right over here. You get out as the system start flickering on and off as the mine becomes under assault, and you need to get your way, make your way to freedom. There are several ways to do this. It's definitely not a railroad. There's 2 different possible exits here or here that you could use, and there's lots of different ways that you can get there. Lots of different loops. There are secret passages. There's ways to bypass enemies. There's rail cars that you can jump on. Lots of different options there, which I like because it really encourages exploration on the player's part instead of just figuring out what's in the next room. You definitely have to map and think about the directions that you're going. The layout is quite good. It reminds me a little bit of what I did in The Waking of Willoughby Hall, in the sense that in each room, say here's a room right here, you have this section that's in white. That's the most obvious stuff. You just go look at the top bullets right here, and you can read those out loud, and the players are going to see what's the most obvious thing in the room. If you have a gray section right here, that's like an event that happens right afterwards. Usually it's the Sorcerer TV, because there's these little TVs in different rooms, and they will flicker on, and you'll get messages from the evil sorcerer Vindicus calling for aid as his citadel is attacked. And those are really fun. There's like little cutscenes basically. And then we have areas that are in yellow and some that are in orange that are things that are more hidden and harder to find. So you're only going to have to look at these things once players investigate more thoroughly. Right? So if they say that I want to look at the pile of rocks, now you know that you can read this section. It's really great at cutting up all of the information from a room so that you know what you have to look at any given time. Lots of great descriptions using different senses, like this room is humid and smells of dust and stale cinnamon. That's really nice. A sickly green light. It's very evocative. It's very brightly colored. It feels like a Saturday morning cartoon. There's plenty of weird monsters that you can encounter. Of course, you are kids, so fighting is usually a bad idea, but you certainly can fight things. When I was playtesting this, my 4 characters were named Cheerleader, So-and-so, What's-Her-Face, and the Ugly One, and I think only 2 of them actually made it out. But mostly they survived because they teamed up and they were able to work together to take out bigger monsters. There's mushrooms that you can pick. There are secret passages that you can uncover. There are enemies that fight in interesting ways. Like there's a lot of these flying robo-drones that fly around and try and grab kids and fly away with them, which is great because it adds an aerial aspect. You can try and knock them down with rocks, or if one of your friends gets grabbed, you can grab onto your friend's leg and try and drag the flying robot down with you. So there's a lot of dynamism with that. There's a mine shaft room where you can look down, and there's a gooey creature that has stolen other children's faces that will try and deceive you and drag you down with it. So that's a fun little encounter that you can have. I really like these illustrations by J.V. West, is I think the illustrator. Yeah, they're my favorites. They're just really vibrant and goofy and really give the vibe that I think that this adventure is going for. There's plenty of different things that you can investigate, things that you can poke. There's little drawers you can pull open. You can look under stuff. You'll find interesting bits of machinery and items, like this power glove that lets you punch harder. You can find, bottles of oil, bottles of acid, lots of different tools that you can use to solve your problems. Because your characters are so weak, and because they basically don't even have ability scores, you have to think really hard about the inventory that you have, the items that you're carrying. That's going to make a much bigger difference in terms of success or failure. And I like that a lot. As we saw back on the map, there is a network of rail cars going throughout this mine system. And every once in a while, you'll come across one of these control boxes with different colored buttons. And by pressing different buttons, they will take you to different parts of the mine. However, it's not totally clear where they take you initially, right? All there is just colored buttons. So that's going to be a fun element of experimentation. Whereas you try different buttons, you figure out where they're going to take you. And sometimes they'll take you somewhere where you don't want to go, and you have to deal with what's there. But as you figure it out, you can turn that to your advantage. One of the big rooms is sort of a boss arena, a central ore processing facility where ore is being crushed up and then smelted down. And there's this big overseer guy that you can fight. He has a whip and like a stun gun. He's really tough, but he's also not that smart, which is a good combination for a boss. If you try and confront him directly, you're probably going to get in trouble. But if you can trick him, then there's ways that you can take him down, especially when you're dealing with liquid hot metal that's being poured into these, giant cauldrons. There's plenty of ways that you can turn that to your advantage. Numerous secret passages, both normal ones, and there's one that's even underwater. You can find a big, small lake or a small pool of water, and by swimming under it, you can get underneath the wall and bypass some enemies and get into the next room. If you search even deeper, you can find some trinkets hidden in the water. Lots of little stuff hidden all over the place. A lot of the rooms have random events going on, so it's going to be different every time you go there. For example, this is a robot repair room. You could have a robo drone that falls off the rack and clatters to the floor. A damaged miner bot activates and attacks. A secret door leading to room 4 opens and a badly damaged robo drone steps out into the room. Near the back, we have a bestiary with a whole bunch of new monsters that you can encounter. The stat blocks are very simple and minimal because we're dealing with the black hack here. Along with a description, you have some special abilities and a big illustration. The art throughout this book varies a lot. There's some of the artists that I really enjoy, like J.V. West, and I really like this artist as well. And there's some that just really don't do it for me, like this one over here. So it's a big mixed bag. There's miner bots. There are mushroom parasites. Here's the Overseer Glog with his power glove that you can get. The Pustule Feeder. That one's pretty scary. Robo Drones, Robo Guardians, Robo Warriors. The Toxic Hipposludgipus, and some rules for dealing with monster swarms. Now, if you finally escape from the slave mines of Vindicus, however you say his name, Vindictus, yeah, then you will be out in the overworld and you are ready to start a full-on adventure in Barbarians of the Ruined Earth. You don't have to start right away, right? Because your main characters are still kids. You can just fast forward, 10, 20 years, and now they're adults. And they have this great adventure that has bonded them and tied them together. And now they've formed a party, and it makes a little bit more sense that way. At the back, we have Sorcerer TV. So every time you see one of these TVs around the mines, it flickers on, and each time you can read the next thing. These are really fun. I really enjoyed this while I was playtesting it, mostly because Mike does this, Skeletor voice really well. And as the Overlord becomes more and more panicked, and it's calling for more and more backup, as his citadel becomes conquered further and further as the forces of good, or maybe just the forces of some other evil faction, conquer more and more of it. So the very first time that this flickers on, it says, Vindictus the Terrible appears in the screen looking angry, but unfrazzled. Robo Warriors, where are you? The intruders are in the southern compound. Then the screen goes blank. And then by the end of it, he's screaming, any remaining Robo Guards and Robo Warriors, report to Vindictus the Terribles. Vindictus ducks as a robot flies over his head. The roar of a beast man is heard off screen. He stands up. Come to my inner sanctum. Come destroy these fools. An explosion is heard off screen. So things are not going so well for him. Also a big table of D20 random events. Some of these are more monsters to fight, but a lot of times it's just environmental touches. For example, the lights flickering on or off, or an explosion is heard in the distance. But you might have something like Robo Drone is sparking and smoldering on the floor, just to add a little bit more spice to each particular room. Overall, it's a pretty straightforward adventure, but quite well made. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of surprise in terms of the kind of monsters and the tactics that they're using. You do have to explore and look at your environment carefully as you go through it. And there's just a lot of flavor and fun and mayhem as you try and escape from these slave mines. A really great place to start if you're just starting off with a black hack or any sort of sci-fi fantasy setting, just because it gets you into that gonzo mindset that you're probably going to be using. As usual, links to where you can pick this up will be in the description right there down below if this looks like something that you would enjoy. And thank you for watching. See you guys next time.